All right. We're live and in person. Live and in person. Live and in person early in the morning. While we're waiting, let me go through my book to see. Hey, Eric, que paso, man? What's going on in Wisconsin? What's going on? Hold on just a second, my friends. What's going on in Wisconsin? Pulverizer, que paso? I want to find hey, Patty. Hey, Tom. What's going on in Maryland, Tom? Hans, que paso? If I can find I want to find something I want to talk about here today. Yeah, right here. Okay, got it. Jimmy. Re-education camp. I am on board with the with whatever they're telling us to say. I'm on board with it. So they tell me to jump. I say how high. Yes, sir. I just read a post from Harvard University, which I'll share with you. How Harvard Medical School is now referring to women as birthing people, not women. So Harvard Medical postgraduate and continuing ed globally, ethnic minority, pregnant and birthing people suffer worse outcomes and experiences during and after pregnancy and childbirth. These inequities have been further highlighted by COVID. Birthing people, ethnic minority, pregnant and birthing people. Yeah, you're in Yuma, Scott? Cool, man. Hey, thanks, Marie. I need to get that sweet, sweet money. So watch the videos on this channel. I'm gonna post stuff from before. Like I got. So what I need to do before YouTube bans me, which they certainly will at some point, is I need to get all my old videos that I've been posting for the last 2 to 3 years actually up and saved. I've saved a lot of them on jump drives. I don't have them right here. But I need to save some more, man. Hey, Don, que paso, man? Kevin, Arizona, for the overseas. Exactly right. A 2-minute delay. So what I'm going to do is I'm going back and I'm just not saving those, to a jump drive, and then I'm posting them on Josh Scanlon, this YouTube channel right here to get that sweet, sweet George Soros revenue for sure. Colonel Klink and Sergeant Schultz. Yeah, you're aging yourself, Tim. Yeah, I'm on YouTube, on MeWe, and on Parler. Right on, man. I don't like MeWe. I like Parler. Parler is fantastic. Mike, que paso? Huntsville, Alabama. Right on. Hey, Bruce, que paso? I like Parler. I like MeWe. I didn't think I'd like it as much as I do. Actually, I like both those platforms. I like. I'm on BitChute, which is okay. Actually, BitChute. Which one? I like uploading stuff to Rumble. It's easier. BitChute's more of a pain, but for some reason I can't remember what it was. Rumble, it'll get better. It's going to get better. It's just if you had to get a chance, watch the MeWe is the alternative to Facebook. It's just like Facebook. It's just fantastic. I like it. I'll have to start a Heritage Wealth Plan thing on MeWe. Hey, right on, Nancy. Ophelia. Hey, right on. Yeah, so if I'm looking at the you are making money. They will not. No, I think they will kick off, Jimmy. I just read that Scott Adams got kicked off from YouTube. Let's East Hampton, Connecticut. I just read that Scott Adams got kicked off from YouTube. Don't forget they demonetized. No, it's funny. They demonetized Crowder, but demonetized means that just Crowder couldn't get paid, but YouTube was still getting paid from the ads. It's freaking crazy, man. Hold on just a second. The birthing people. All right, so I want to hold on just a second. I want to see Scott Adams right here. Google's YouTube shuts down Dilbert creator Scott Adams. Yep. And that's from the Federalist today. So, oh, okay. Oh, so they just deleted a video. All right. Well, hell, man. It's whatever at this stage. It is what it is. Hey, Mary, que paso? Susan, Monrovia, or Mike, right on. Oklahoma. On MeWe, I'm part of a group called Walking to Freedom. Harry, this will be interesting to you. So real quick on MeWe, Walking to Freedom, I posted a thing. Hey, does anyone know about Oklahoma? And I said, look, Walking to Freedom is more for libertarian minded, not Republican so much. I mean, libertarians and Republicans got a lot of overlap. And I said, does anyone know anything about Oklahoma? And I said, the reason I like it is because all the counties in Oklahoma voted red. Hey, Jill. And actually, Dan, I'm going to make you all right. Anyway, all the counties voted red. And this guy posted that Oklahoma, I forgot what he said, but he said Oklahoma was one of his top 3 places to retire. I think he's in California now. He was thinking about going to Tennessee, but he said Oklahoma is New Hampshire, Tennessee. Now Oklahoma's his top 3. Hey, Tina. I got kicked off because I questioned the logic of masks and lockdowns, because we should be all wearing our mask at all times, even when we're in the shower, even when we're sitting on the pot. You should be wearing your mask because masks just make sense and lockdowns just make sense. I mean, there's no evidence at all to suggest that lockdowns don't work. So the evidence suggests that lockdowns work. The evidence suggests that masks work too, because you see these places where they have these masks mandates and the COVID spread goes up, which shows you the mask works. So that just shows it. So I am agreeing that the mask and lockdowns work. So YouTube, I completely agree. The mass lockdowns work. But I mean, the problem is I like doing these live streams, and I like someone said, I should have a 2-minute 2-minute thing on here, because it's only a matter of time, man. I mean, we see, look, now that the Sniffy is president, and I know there's some people who are out there saying it's not going to happen. So look, it's happening. It's happening. There's no other way around that. As much as I hate it, it's happening. So there is no one to regulate now, to threaten. In fact, Sniffy, some of these Democrats are saying they want more censorship. So who do you think they want to censor, man? I mean, come on. And I just, it's nuts. And the thing that YouTube has going for it is it's like Styx Hexhammer said, it's like a jukebox. I just listened today some old Spanish music I hadn't heard for a while. And my daughter, and I was listening to a couple, that's the stuff you can't find elsewhere. At least, yeah, I mean, it's coming, but it's frustrating. All right, let's say a quick prayer, shall we? So Father, Son, Holy Spirit, amen. Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. Amen. And dear Lord, let us just relax a little bit and not worry so much about what's going on in the state of affairs. It's outside of our control. Let us just focus on the things we can control and let the less just flow off our backs. We pray in Jesus' name. Amen. Let's see. I do my prayers every morning. We do our prayers with our kids every night, and I just I started doing my prayers on these YouTube channels because I enjoy it. I think it's a good way to show people that saying a prayer is a good way to get in right with the Lord. If I mean, you have to be open-minded enough for sure. But I mean, what I mean is you have to let the Holy Spirit kind of come hit you. I was talking to a guy the other day, a very wealthy guy, and it's just funny how he found Jesus serendipity. You know what I'm saying? It's kind of like a lot of us, we come to we come to the Lord when the Lord calls, if that makes sense. And so you can seek, you might not find. He'll reach out to you when he does. When he sends the Holy Spirit to find you, he will. That's all there is to it. But that doesn't mean, well, the Lord has never found me. Well, he has. He just the Lord is supernatural, everything. And we are not. So the Lord hasn't found me. Oh, yeah. He knows every hair on your body, man. Every hair on your body. Yes, we're going to blindly follow your mass recommendation. Yeah, the Pope, I don't know what's going on. I don't know. Crazy. All right, so let me start with. I seemed like I wanted to. So this from my book, Retire with Wellington. I'm not sure how many of y'all have it or not, and I can't share my screen on this. I just haven't set up Zoom yet to do that. David said, "What good is the Supreme Court?" No. Yeah, I mean that's the problem. We're relying on the judicial stuff. I mean. I can't remember if I said it here yesterday or not, but if you look at, I think I did, maybe not, but not that many people were here. Maybe I can't remember, but I posted on MeWe. And I said, over the last 40 years, the Republicans have had more control of DC than the Democrats have. Did you know that? So the Republicans had the president for 40 years. The Republicans had the presidency 12, 8, and 4. So that's 24 of the last 40 years. The Democrats 16. All right, Clinton and what's his name? Obama. So we've had it for 24. They've had it for 16. The Republicans had in 2000. I think it was 2000 through 2004 and 2016 through 2018. We had both chambers of Congress for 6 years. Congress for 6 years, and Democrats only 4. Where they had the presidency. So not only did we have the presidency more, but we also had both chambers of Congress more as well. From 6 years to 4 for the Democrats. And look, I mean, look where we are now. We can complain all day long that it's the education establishment. We can complain all day long that it's the media certainly. We can complain all day long that it's the deep state, what I'm saying, the administrative state. But the facts are is that we have the Republicans have watched, if not perpetuated, this insanity of a cultural decline, of a complete collapse of culture. There's no other way around that. I mean, to talk about women as birthing people, it's freaking nuts, man. I don't understand where the women are. Why are women not standing up against this? It's crazy. It doesn't make any sense to me. I mean, the feminists are okay with being called birthing people. It's nuts. It just shows it's all fake. It's all fake. But anyway, and so I'm sitting there thinking, okay, so the Republicans have not done anything. I mean, the Democrats have, even when they're in minority. Look at who's really the governor of Georgia. Well, Stacey Abrams. Stacey Abrams is the governor of Georgia. The Republicans control it's a trifecta here. We control the House, the Senate, and the governors. And look what's happening. I mean, the whole thing's nuts. I'm starting to become less and less enchanted with the Republicans as the savior, and which means that's good, because that simply says they're not doing anything. They're part of the problem. And when you start realizing that they are just as much part of the problem, you start getting a little bit of freedom to say, okay. I mean, they're both going to practice corruption. All right. They're both going to do what they can for you to increase the deep state, and relying on the judicial system to free us from that. Well, the judicial system is part of that as well. So I don't know. It's one of those liberating things, actually, when you say, I'm not sure the red versus blue thing. Look, I'm going to vote for freaking Purdue and what's her name. But I think at some point we have to, look a gift horse in the eye and say, what have they done? I mean, literally, I don't know. What have they done? I mean, we have better Second Amendment rights, that's for sure. They have better Second Amendment rights, but that's because of Wayne LaPierre and the NRA. Certainly not because of the Republican Party. I don't know. I sit there and if I got to tell you too, I was reading this post today from a right winger talking about, Trump needs to take credit for the vaccine push. I said, dude, that vaccine push is nothing to be. I don't know what the hell that is. I'm not stoked about that. What is this? Yeah, I mean, it's weird to me that the Republicans, as long as it's got an R next to his name, we're cool with it. And the Democrats, same way, even worse. If there's a D next to their name, they're cool with it. If it's an R next to our name, we're cool with it. And I just say, I don't like that stuff. They're saying, well, Trump should get credit for the vaccine. I said, really? It's the weirdest thing to me, man. I don't understand. It's like my team, your team, and I don't know. I feel like I'm getting to the point now, 50 years old. I just don't want to play that anymore. It's nuts. And the sad thing is that there are some things that Trump did really well that I wish we could exploit, which is make China kneel, which is going to be gone now. I mean, and the judges are great for sure, but at the end of the day, the government has just grown and grown and grown. We still got Christopher Wray at the FBI. No one at the FBI is held accountable. We still got the CIA, the FBI, the DOD. We still got all these freaking crooks in there. Not a damn one has been held accountable. Yeah, they might have been fired, a few of them, but it's the same old, man. Nothing's changed. And so you get depressed or you just realize it's just the way it's going to be, man. Yeah, I'm not voting for the Democrats. No way. And I mean, again, I'll vote for the Republicans just because they're better. They're not as bad, but the Libertarians are nuts. There's a guy named Dave Smith. You guys should follow him. I think Dave Smith and he's the kind of libertarian I like. So it's funny. The Libertarian Party, there is a kind of a fight for the soul of the Libertarian Party too, as there is one for the Democrats with AOC versus. So this guy right here, Dave Smith, part of the problem right there. Dave Smith's part of the problem. Dave Smith talks about zero evidence. I probably should not say more, but anyway, he's a libertarian I like because he likes America. He hates woke culture, but he doesn't like war. He doesn't like freaking the militarized police state. Did you all read? This is freaking insane. Have you listened to Viva Frey's video he did this morning about what's going on in Quebec? Trump is a Nazi. Trump is the police state. Trump's the fascist. Listen to what is going on in Quebec. It's freaking insane, man. It's insane. And I told you a couple weeks ago before I got banned in Greece, you had to freaking text the cops. You had to text the cops that you're going for a walk. You didn't text the cops. And this is in Greece. Yeah, it's freaking nuts. It's insane. It's insane. And the Republicans where's Trump? Look, I wish he won. I get it. I can't. So you know what? He didn't win, if you know what I'm saying. But what the hell? Like, who was I listening to today? Someone saying, it's my man Anomaly. He was saying wait, so Trump can ban against the First Amendment, saying you can't talk anti-Semitic stuff, which I hate anti-Semitic stuff, but it's a First Amendment right to do that. But he can't freaking go after states who are violating your rights to property. It's crazy. It's crazy. Why are we giving Trump so much freaking free? Just say, well, because the other guy's worse. At some point, you got to say, no, man, you didn't do anything. And they're running roughshod over our rights. And you did nothing. Nothing. In fact, anything, you freaking came after Brian Kemp for opening up I'm just frustrated, man. I'm frustrated. I just sit there and say, our side, supposed to be the side for freedom, did nothing, while the other side was running rampant over our freaking rights. In fact, if anything, our side capitulated, if not advocated for it too. Brian Kemp stood up, and Trump freaking sold him under the bus. That is a fact. That is a fact. And it's just, I don't know. Anyway, that is not good. And I just think at the end of the day, is that the kind of country we're living in where any governor can just basically willy-nilly say, well, we're doing this for your, and here it is, we're going on 9 months. Not a damn thing has changed. It's even worse now. Even worse. In Canada, you got to read this thing. You got to watch that video from Viva Frey. It's crazy. All right. The world has lost their mind. And we're sitting there thinking, oh, he'll get better when? When a vaccine? What the hell? Crazy. All right. So I'm going to read you this about Japan because I've been wanting to talk about this for a while. All right. So this is a halftime report from my book. Before we move forward, let's analyze what we've learned so far. Inflation is the destroyer of retirement plans. Inflation is the destroyer of retirement plans. Historically, recessions and even depressions have been a lot more manageable than high inflation. Thankfully, I don't believe we are heading into an inflationary time at all. I think Japan is more likely to be our future. And I was saying, I think I said, I can't remember, I can't keep track of it anymore. But I was talking to a lady the other day. Her and her husband live in Staten Island, I think. Yeah, I think so. Anyway, and she's native of Japan. Now she's an American citizen, but she's native of Japan. And I was laying out my reasoning why I think we're going to Japan, and she just said, "Yes, that's exactly what happened in Japan. Why the recession was happening, and whether or not it happens here remains to be seen. But if true, I mean, that's exactly what caused not just the recession in Japan, but the incredible lack of any growth of any kind of movement in inflation, of negative interest rates, just horrible stock returns, except for the last 10 years." From 1990 to 2018, Japan averaged all of less than 0.5% inflation. In the 21st century, Japan's inflation has been 9 basis points. That's 0.09%. 0.09%. Since 1990, their growth rate has been an anemic 1.1% annually. That's 30 years, man, 1.1%. And only 0.93 since 2000. So for the last 20 years, it's been less than 1. Yields on their 10-year government bonds are actually negative, and they've averaged only 1.88% going back to 1990. Lastly, the Nikkei, their version of the S&P 500, has averaged less than 1% since 1990. 0.96, that's it. Their Nikkei has averaged only 3.8% since 2000. So less than 1% in the Nikkei since 1990. Crazy. And yet inflation over that time has been 0.47. So they're actually making money because inflation has been so low. So has in the stock return, and the government bonds are negative. What to make of this? Well, if we use the Japan as our proxy for a low return, low inflation retirement environment, how should we stand? And I show you, and you're not going to be able to see this very well. Anyway, but I got a chart there, and you can see 1990, the Nikkei was down 38%. And so what I show you is that if you would have had, hold on a second, if you would have had $100,000 in the Nikkei in 1990, and took 5% a year out, you would have ran out of money by 1998. $100,000, you would have been broke by 1998. As you can see, investing $100,000 and taking 5% initially, and adjusting for inflation each and every year thereafter, we'd have run out of money in 9 years. When you're taking money out and the markets are getting hammered, you are sunk. From our own perspective in the U.S., it is inflation that has sunk many retirement boats, but that's not the only risk we face, as our friends in Japan show us. We have to worry about big investment losses on the front end of retirement, what is called the sequence of return risk, as everyone is aware of. It's almost like there's no place to hide. But let's keep looking at Japan for a second. If you had government bonds in Japan and you took 5% a year out, all right, so you started in 1990, 100,000 in the 10-year government bond, and you took 5% a year out of your portfolio, your money would have lasted you for, it would have lasted you for 17 years. No, 27 years, excuse me. If we took 5% initial distribution adjusted each year for inflation, our money lasted 27 years with no risk, because a government bond is the risk-free investment. And the reason for that is simple, because when he started in 1990, you're getting 6.96 on treasury bonds, then went to 6.34 to 3.1 in 1996, 1% in 2003, and then it's basically just gone downhill ever since. But the facts are you did not lose money, and inflation was nothing. And so $5,000. So listen, check this out. What cost you $5,000 in 1990 Japan only cost you $5,669 30 years later. Does that make sense? So if it costs you $5,000 for this cup of tea, it only costs you $5,669 30 years later in Japan. That's it. So your bonds are sitting there just making a little bit of interest, but the cost of the goods was just going up a little bit, but not nearly as much. I mean, it just wasn't going up much at all. So that's where bonds can come in big time. And this is where people say, well, you hate bonds. Well, I do, but if we are having in a heavy inflation or deflationary time, fixed assets, any kind of fixed assets are where the golden goose is. Now, the interesting thing, though, deflation, there's no correlation with deflation and negative stock returns. I just want to be clear there. There's none whatsoever. You can't say, well, deflation leads to negative stock returns. That's not necessarily true. It's not true. It's just there's no correlation that would lead to causation. That if this happens, that happens. Kind of like you cannot say CO2 or high-end temperatures are increasing because of CO2. There's no correlation with CO2 leading to high temperature increases in terms of causation. You can't say this happens, thus that happens. No, it's not true. Somewhere here. The markets went down in the U.S. in 1930 because of depression, and the markets went down in Japan in the 1990s because of, but it wasn't really depressionary then yet. It wasn't. We still had growth, and they still had inflation of 3, 1, 1, 0.7, 1.7. They still had some inflation. So you cannot sit there and say, deflation equals markets declines. That doesn't make sense. In fact, in the 1870s, 1880s, 1890s, the U.S. had significant deflation, and yet they had market increases like you would believe. So there's absolutely no correlation between deflation and market decline. Now, it's certainly none they could say there's a causation. There's just not there. So we know then if we go to deflation, fixed income will do well. You're not going to hit grand slam home runs, but you're going to hit singles, and that's not so bad in a deflationary economy. What does that mean? Stocks are almost like an electron from an atom. They're all bouncing around electrons. If you know how an atom works, electrons are way out here. They're just bouncing all over the place. So stocks could go anywhere. You know what I'm saying? Anywhere. And that's how stocks work during deflationary times. They could do anything. Bonds, on the other hand, are quite fixed. But we know for a fact that bonds will do quite well in deflationary times. You know what else will do well? Not owning your home, not borrowing money. Remember, debt welcomes inflation. Debt hates deflation. All right, because debt means you're paying what $1 today can buy $1.10 tomorrow because of deflation. All right. So I'm paying that $1 today, which would pay $1 off of my debt. Tomorrow I'm paying $1, which would pay essentially $1.10 off my debt, but I'm not getting anything. I'm actually losing money and relative to my purchasing power because that dollar has to go out. And now I'm just telling you, debt hates de-inflation. Debt hates deflation. So you do not want to be a borrower in a deflationary society. All right, let's keep going. So we talked about that with Japan. I guess. By the way, if you only took out 4% a year in Japan during that worst from 1990 to 2020, you never ran out of money. So going back to the Wellington Fund, if I may, and Wellesley, I'm starting to get a lot more interest in Wellesley Fund now. Wellesley's got 65% bonds, 35% stocks. Wellington's a mirror image of that. If we do go to a more deflationary economy, all right, Wellesley will certainly look great. It will. And the interesting thing about Wellesley is it was down. I don't think I have it. Let's see if I have my spreadsheet here. Let's see if I got it. Dan, you got, let's see. Hold on just a second. Wellesley, if I can find it, hold on just a second, was down like 10% in 2008. Yeah, here we go. Sweet. And I'm using my man Daniel Culibert's spreadsheets here, by the way. 55e.co, 55e.co. The best spreadsheets going. You should buy them. I don't get any pay from Dan or any kickbacks or anything like that, but 55e.co. I use this freaking daily. I'm just always sitting here. So let's go to Wellesley Fund here, and we'll see what it has done right there. In 2000, I can't remember if it was down in 2002. I don't believe it was, actually. So let's see. Let's get that party started. It's working. Get that party started. All right, so Wellesley Fund was actually up in 2002. Look at that. Wait, is that the right one? Hold on a second. Am I looking at it right? It's 10 year. Hold on a second. There we go. Wellesley. There we go. Hold on a second. Right there. All right, right there. In 2002, Wellesley was actually up in 2002. So in 2000, Wellesley was up 16%. In 2001, it was up 7.4. In 2002, it was up 4.6. Interesting. In 2008, Wellesley was down 9.8. That's it. Wellesley was down in 1994 and 1999. Can you, anyone want to take a guess why Wellesley was down in 1994 and 1999? There's a common occurrence in 1994 and 1999 that happened with a certain sector of our investing area. Anyone want to guess? I can't share a screen. Not on this. This is YouTube. YouTube's live chat. I can't do it. I got to get my Zoom thing to connect to this. No, not junk bonds. All right, so keep trying. So Frank says junk bonds. Nope. Savings loan. Nope. So why did the markets go down in some categories in 1994 and 1999? And they did not go in other categories. Nope, not growth. Keep shooting at it, man. Keep shooting at it. Whoever gets this right will win the red star for our CCP masters. The red star. You will get the red star. Like what's her name? Freaking Jen Psaki, a pink star, I guess. So, nope, not taxes, not Clinton. Nope. You guys just want me to answer? Let's see, we got anybody else? Nope. Not in the Y2K. The feds were raising. All right, so the Fed raised interest rates in 1994 and 1999. So all fixed income heavy accounts, bonds got killed. Anything that was fixed income got, I don't want to say killed, but was lost money in 1994 and 1999. So the Wellesley Fund was down in 1999, 4%. Where the S&P 500 was up like 35%. And I remember when I was at Vanguard back then, again, Wellesley, Windsor Fund, all the funds that were kind of slow growth, large cap value stocks, whatnot, no one wanted to touch them with a 10-foot pole. And as such, everyone's like, those guys should be fired. They wanted U.S. Growth Fund, and it's nuts. Anyway, so Wellesley. Now, look, you notice we're not talking Grand Slam homers here, and you're not going to get Grand Slam homers anyway. And the reason for that is because interest rates are so low now anyhow. So Wellesley has, 65% of it's in bonds. We're not going to get 6% interest rates. Actually, 10-year Treasury, 2.9 in 2007. Was that 10-year Treasury? Is that inflation? Hold on a second. 10-year Treasury, here we go. 10-year Treasury is 6.7. So here, check it out. 10-year Treasury in 1999 was 4.7. 10-year Treasury in 2000 was 6.7. A sign of raising rates. 10-year Treasury in 1994 was 5.8. 10-year Treasury in 1995 was 7.8. In fact, a lot of people say that led to Clinton taking, not Clinton, but the Republicans taking Congress because the increase in interest rates was somewhat recessionary. It's interesting because when you think about it, they thought inflation was so high and through the roof that they had to raise rates from 5.8 to 7.8. That's a 200 basis point increase. Now, this is the 10-year. They don't actually raise the rates on the 10-year. They raise it on the federal funds rate, but be that as may, it went up 200%. And yet inflation, this was interesting, in 1994, inflation was all 2.6%. And so they're so worried about inflation with low unemployment because of stupid Phillips curve in economics. The economics are fools. I just did a video just about an hour ago about Paul Krugman. They're freaking idiot, man. All these economists are idiots. They're all dumb. No one knows what's going to happen. Anyway, so here's inflation at 2.6% in 1994. 10-year Treasury is at 5.8. They raised the 10-year Treasury to start 1995 to 7.8 because they're worried about dastardly inflation with low unemployment, because that's what the Phillips curve says. The Phillips curve says the minute you have low unemployment, you inherently have to have high inflation, and the only way to deal with high inflation is through raising interest rates. It's all freaking nuts, man. All these guys, they freaking suck. In 1999, the same thing. Inflation was 2.2. In 1998, inflation was 1.6. In 1999, it was 2.2, and yet they raised the 10-year Treasury from 4.7 to 6.7 because unemployment was so low. We thought we're at full unemployment with 5%. They weren't. So they raised the interest rates. They freaking bonds, they didn't get killed, but bonds lost money where everything else was making money. And we didn't have any inflation. It was only at 2.2%. That's not inflationary. But anyway, so bonds being down 4.1. This is the Wellesley, by the way. The Wellesley being down 4.1, well, the S&P 500 is up 33. That's a 37% difference. People don't want to touch the S&P 500 with the Wellesley with a 10-foot pole. But fast forward 3 years, Wellesley is up 4.6, where the S&P 500 was down 9, 12, and 22% consecutively. And the Wellesley was up. Did not lose money. All right, so now we fast forward until low interest rates. Wellesley still in 2019 was still up 16%. 2018 was down to 1.3 in 2015. No one did anything in 2015, but respectable returns: 16, 10, 10, 10, 9, 8, 1, 8, 10, negative, and 16. The point is that can you graph VWINX from total stock on a graph? Yeah, I'm sure the total stock index smoked the Wellington or the Wellesley for sure. The point is that at the end of the day, when we're going into low inflation, deflationary economies, the stock market in of itself is its own unique circumstance. It may or may not do something. Hard to imagine the stock market taking off like being all that in a bag of chips when there's little to no growth in the economy to support it. But it can happen. I mean, it happened it has happened before. Like I said, in the 1800s, the stock market boomed. But is that really the true stock market? I don't know. I'm telling you, I'm just more worried about the Japan. I'm more worried about if we got even half as bad as what happened in Japan with a major, major sell-off in stocks. Then you're crushed. You're crushed. This is what I tell everybody who's about to retire. I said, I just think you should hang tight. I think you should be preservation, at least for the first couple of years. Look, man, all these people saying the vaccine is going to rescue us. We'll all go back to normal. No, the Great Reset is here. Now, we can argue about the World Economic Forum all day long and Klaus Schwab or whatever that clown's name is in freaking Brussels. We can argue that all day long. It doesn't matter. It's here. It's happening. Without question. Grand design or not, I don't know. Frankly, it does not matter. It is here. So the issue that comes, we have more and more is here, man. And so what happens to equities? Well, that's a challenge I have. And with Sniffy Joe in there, I don't know. I just look at Japan. It was ugly. And the one thing that did not get ugly was the bond market if you were about ready to retire. If you were about ready to retire, you were able to solidify your retirement by being heavier in fixed income. Now, you never want to be all or nothing because what if you're wrong? You always want to be what if you're wrong. Yeah, I know, Tim. Business close all around is that just freaking pisses me off. Yeah, well, Mike says his rental units have been a money-making machine. I talked to a couple people last week who had rentals. Both were inclined to sell them. I said, why? Why would you do that? They're generating you positive income. Not huge, but $800 a month? Something like that. I can't remember. I was like, they're paying off your mortgage? Why? Why would you do that? They're not building housing. The supply of housing is limited. And the more regulation, it's just going to get worse. So, look, I'm not saying go out and buy rentals. I'm not saying that. I'm just saying at the end of the day, if you're already in rentals and you're making money and you're comfortable with the risk you're taking, and hopefully you got your rentals in an LLC or at least have an umbrella policy, then I wouldn't get out of that to save my life. One guy who had a rental, he was making I want to say like $1,000 a month, and he could sell his house for like $120 or something like that, or $100. I was like, dude, you're getting like a 10% capital rate, a cap rate. I can't remember what it's called, a cap rate or something like that. I said, my goodness, dude, my goodness. What kind of stock? There's no bonds that come anywhere near that. No stocks, nowhere near that. Come on. And there's still some appreciation to be had potentially on that rental. He thought he was going to sell it. I said, no. And I think he actually lived. Where did he live? So I'm going to come down there and shake you silly because don't do that. It's nuts. All right. Anyway, my point is, if you're about to retire and you're sitting there thinking, I don't care if it's, look, I don't care who is in the president. The one thing I do like with Sniffy Joe, and I don't like it, but the facts are, is that he is in the corporate CCP pocket. We know that. Corporatists want to make money. They make money. They're going to make sure that they're limiting their competition. They're going to make sure that they're able to reduce their labor force because labor is the biggest expense. And as such, they're going to make sure that they get government subsidies. They're going to get a lot. Their lobbying people are working overtime to make sure corporations get paid. That's just a fact. We know Sniffy Joe is knee deep on that. So that would say there's probably large cap domestic stocks. Who knows? I don't know. But I'm just saying at the end of the day, you could easily see the beneficiaries of all this crap are large corporations. No, there's no other way around it. Oligarchy. We're in a fascist oligarchy state here for sure. And it's funny too. All these people, we're socialism. Oh God, people are just dumb. If you think the police force is socialistic, you're a friggin' idiot. I'm sorry. That's just stupid. If you think the GI Bill is socialistic, you are stupid. There's no other way around that. In fact, I was arguing with my daughter that was an argument, but she said one of her teachers was saying that. So not socialism, it's fascist, if nothing else. The government is hiring businesses to build the stuff that the government wants to see happen. Big government, big business working together. Now, I'm not going to say fascism in terms of schooling because that's localized for sure. But when you have the big governments with, Moderna, big government under Trump spending 100 million vaccine shots on Moderna and whatever the other company is, Pfizer, whatever the hell it is, we're getting fascistic stuff there, my friends. The government spending money on this kind of stuff for big businesses to profit. Big businesses who profit also happen to be running the government because Scott Gottlieb and who's the other guy from Trump administration were knee deep in the pharmaceutical lobbying businesses, and now all of a sudden they're in a Trump administration. The same thing's going to happen with Sniffy Joe. It's the same thing. That's fascistic. That's not socialistic by any stretch of the imagination. Anyway, so what's happening here is these companies will probably continue to do well, but just because they are protected by the oligarchs in DC, the deep state, doesn't mean there can't be a decline in the stock market, just not by any stretch. And we can look at Japan and we can say, well, the government can rush in to save it. That did not happen in Japan. Just did not. Just going back to, I want to get it. Hold on just a second. Oh, holy grail. Right here. So I can't remember who told me about this book, but whoever did is the man of all men. The Holy Grail Macroeconomics by Richard Koo. It's just such a great book, man. It's just so much. Here. Japan did experience a severe credit crunch in 1997 and 1998. This was caused by domestic and foreign investors pulling their funds out of Japan en masse, afraid that the Hashimoto administration's fiscal retrenchment would bring further economic deterioration. I feel like I'm trapped. Oh, hold on a second. Deterioration. This tremendous flight of capital from Japan, which at the time was described in the media as a Nihon Yuri, or dump Japan, sent both the yen and the Japanese stocks tumbling. Falling stock prices reduced the numerator in Japanese banks' capital adequacy ratios as unrealized gains on bank shares portfolios, 45% of which are treated as capital, dropped sharply. Meanwhile, the weak yen increased the denominator by boosting the value of banks' dollar-denominated assets. The resulting drop in capital ratios forced banks to trim their asset portfolios and triggered a nationwide credit crunch. Is selling stocks. There's just so much stuff in here. I got so many. Oh, right here. Oh, let's read this one. Ordinary inflation and hyperinflation are fundamentally different phenomena. Some may say that there's no need to go to the extreme of helicopter money, and that instead the central bank should pursue a much milder inflation target for a few percent. Krugman, our infamous clown, in one of his papers proposed that Japan guide the inflation rate to about 4%. Yeah, The problem with this argument is that such a moderate inflation target would not destroy the public's trust in the Bank of Japan and therefore would not alter their behavior. And without a change in their behavior, even an inflation rate of a few percent will be unachievable. Fundamentally, money is either trusted or it is not. There is no gray area. The failure of the Bank of Japan's 5-year experiment with quantitative easing starting in March 2001 to generate inflation and a growth in money supply is proof that trust in the central bank remains intact. They still trust the central bank. And as such, they cannot generate inflation. As long as it does, nothing will happen to inflation because people have no reason to abandon the correct and responsible course of paying down debt. In these circumstances, it is impossible for the Bank of Japan to induce mild inflation. Although a central bank can always generate hyperinflation by acting so as to lose the public's trust, its ability to induce modest amounts of inflation depends on whether private businesses are in profit maximization mode or not. Right now, private businesses are in survival mode, which means they're not borrowing, not growing, not expanding, especially when you got clown governors like Gruesome, DeWine, freaking all these clowns out there saying, yeah, I'm glad that you put all that money into efforts to expand. Sorry, sucks for you. We're doing a takings, but we'll give you $1,200 stimulus check. Oh, no, we won't because you made too much money the year before. Freaking ass clowns. It's clownish. So you can say there could be hyperinflation. There won't be hyperinflation until the citizenry completely abandons our faith in the central bank. And we're not going to do that, man. Hell, we have faith in Fauci. Have faith in Fauci. He blesses us. You think we're going to lose faith in the central bank? It's not happening. So they can print all the money they want. It's not going to do anything. And so that's what Richard Koo is saying here. He's saying, look, man, no one's going to, they can lower interest, they can do all they want. No one is going to profit maximize when they're worried about survival. No one's going to do that. Inflation is not the concern. I cannot stress this enough. Just on the other hand, don't forget to get this book right here. Just for all you nervous Nellies about retirement planning. The Essential Retirement Guide, A Contrarian Perspective by Vatise, right there, Frederick Vatise. Let's see if I just got pulled up a couple here. Oh, check it out here. I just pulled up this page. With the mortgage paid and children gone, Steve and Ashley, you got Pablo? Hi, buddy. Pa the like button. There goes old Pablo. Steve and Ashley may well decide to go on a spending spree to satisfy their pent-up demand because Steve and Ashley just retired, right? And they're all, you're going to spend crazy when you retire. The shopping list, however, will be heavily weighted towards one-time big-ticket items like the coveted Rolex watch or a fur coat or installing an in-ground pool. These are examples of purchases that, for the most part, do not translate into a need for higher regular spending the rest of their lives. Is that highly likely that Steve and Ashley will not try to increase their regular consumption from 30, basically saying they're not going to go above what they normally spend. Not everyone, and not even most people, will pounce on a sudden and temporary increase in disposable income to change their lifestyles drastically, especially after a lifetime of practicing moderation. I know my parents couldn't do it, even though they had ample financial resources to make the change on a permanent basis. When it comes to spending habits, inertia is a powerful force. I will not try to quantify this factor, but encourages us to round down rather than up. Anyway, the point about that is what Frederick is saying here is that you're ingrained with a certain habit. You don't just wake up one day and start lighting cigars with $100 bills. And that's why I always say the surest way to indicate if someone's ready to retire is if they have no pension, if they have no debt and a pension. If they have no debt and a pension. I'm telling you, the reason why is because there is a certain mentality that says, I'm going to stay at this job long enough to capture what my labor has put in. I'm going to pay down debt. Usually that means I stay at the same job. That also means I didn't move. That also means I usually stay in the same house, which means my house is paid off. If that makes sense. So I'm not transient. I'm pretty just reliable. I show up at the office. I'm just good old fashioned American. I don't upgrade. I don't, freaking buy brand spanking new houses. I just plug away. I wake up and I'm 60 years old. I got no debt in the house I raised my kids in. and I got a pension because I stayed at my job for 20, 30 years. It's nuts. All right. Yeah, I can't criticize Fauci. Oh man. Yeah, right there. Mike said he just put money into a 5-year fixed annuity at basically 3 1/8. I got no problem with that. What profits come back to U.S.? Oh, one thing I do want to say, I haven't read that article yet, Brian. Brian sent me an article from New England Journal of Medicine, the same article where Fauci said that not the same article, the same group that said where Fauci had written in February saying COVID-19 was nothing more than severe flu. And he was right. It was nothing more than severe flu. I read today that UPI is saying the lack of flu, there's not much flu going around this year, proves that masks and lockdowns work. We are living in just Idiotville. I'm so tired of Idiotville, man. War is the solution. If you want inflation, that's 100% right. We want war if we want inflation. That's what the Keynesians say. That's we call it the broken window theory. We say, hey, you break a window, that creates jobs. And then Frederick Bastiat will say, the what is seen and what is unseen. We're not seeing the tailor who did not get employed because the extra money that was going to be used to hire the tailor now goes to pay for the window guy because the guy had to replace the window. Pennsylvania, yeah. Remember, Brian? We're talking about maybe going to Hershey, and my man Brian a couple weeks ago said don't because they're going to shut down the state. And sure enough, shutting it down to January 4th, 2021. And people are okay with this. I sit there today. I say, people are okay with this. It's really frightening to me that people are like, this is acceptable. I don't know what to take of it. I don't know. I don't know. I don't know what to make of this. And it's not just the sad thing. It's not like, well, just America because we're spoiled brats. Like Peru, I just told you about Greece, Canada. I mean, it's not just here. It's not just in Western white countries. It's all over. It's crazy to me. I don't know what's going on in Russia. Are they doing in Russia? I have no idea. What did Japan not do lockdowns or something like that? Or Taiwan? One of those countries didn't do them, and one of the countries did. China did. Japan did not, or Taiwan did. I can't remember. So there's some non-Western countries that don't follow the protocol, but I mean, Singapore, hell, that's a freaking, that's a top-down state, that's for sure. It's crazy. Yeah, but so D&G asked a good question. What would drive capital out of the U.S.? That's the one thing relative to Frederick Koo, which is why I say we're Japan light, not Japan heavy. And the reason I say Japan light is a number of reasons for that. Is 100%. There is still the U.S. is the only game in town. I mean, they're not going to euro. You're not going to won. You're not going to friggin' peso. You're not going to the pound. You're staying right here in the good old U.S. of A. That's just a fact. Part two is we still have more immigration than Japan does. That is a fact. So we do have a growing population, even if it's growing. The growing is declining, if that makes sense. And so, whereas Japan is a demographic time bomb, like China, by the way. Don't forget, China is projected to only have 750 million people by the end of this century. I mean, think about that. China, 750 million people by the end of the century. India and Nigeria will have more people than China does by the end of the century. So while everyone's worried about the CCP, I am. I mean, for our lifetime, they're evil. We get that, but they're not long. They're not long. So because there's the one child policy is nuts, and of course, commies always lose ultimately. But at the end of the day, there's still a risk right now for sure. But anyway. But as amazing. So India and Nigeria will be the most, I think was it Indonesia maybe, I can't remember, but will be the most populated countries by the end of this century. China won't be. And Japan's going to have, what they say, like 30 million people or something like that, some significant decline. It's nuts in Japan. It's crazy. And as such, we're not like that. We're growing. It's just a decelerating pace. We're decelerating. What's actually interesting? I was looking at some places up in Maine, not for retirement places, but I've always been interested in popular. I love Maine. You know what I'm saying? And I'm from there, so it's my homies. Maine. If you look at Alpharetta, Georgia, we've had a huge. That's where I live. We had a huge increase in population from the last 30 years. And Maine is just the exact opposite. You see these towns like Skowhegan. They're not very big to begin with, but they lost 12% of the population over the last decade. That's happened across in Maine, New Hampshire, Vermont, Pennsylvania, and West Virginia. Those states are losing population. It's actually quite it's alarming to some degree that these states are losing population. The interesting thing, I'm telling you, man, this so as someone who loves Maine, as someone who if I ever got money, I'd love to buy a place up there, a part-time place. Is there gonna be more when the population is declining, right? Does that make the properties less or more affordable? Well, it makes them more affordable because there's less demand for those properties, if that makes sense. So it's very interesting. So if you're from West Virginia and you've always wanted to go back there on the summertime, keep your eyes and ears peeled because you might be able to pick up some stuff on relatively cheap, I think. Pennsylvania, the northern New England, and Pennsylvania and West Virginia, those 5 states we're seeing a decline. And there'll be more after this census. I'm very excited to see what this census shows. The South is going to be booming for sure. The Southwest will be booming. The Idaho, Nevada, Arizona, those still be booming. Colorado. Those upper Midwest and the northeastern states are losing population pretty critically. It's pretty critical, actually. It wasn't that long ago. Iowa was losing all their young talent. I remember this probably 20 years ago. They were trying to have some kind of thing where they're saying, we need to bring younger people back because they're leaving once they graduate school. And if they even go to Iowa schools, they're never coming back. And they're taking their talents. They're taking their talents to South Beach, essentially. And they had a big issue with that. I'm not sure if that's changed or not. Isn't it interesting that Trump won Iowa going away? Trump won Ohio going away. Trump won Florida by 3. Interesting, because that's never happened before, where you lose. You know what I'm saying? Interesting. I wonder what could have possibly happened to cause that. Why would some places, some precincts, not many, but just a few precincts and a few districts go heavily for some other guy, but every place else didn't? What could have caused that? I have to think on that some. What could possibly have caused that? I wonder. Especially when Trump won. Remember, it won't be fake news when they're reporting that Trump was down 17 in Wisconsin. That's not fake news. It's not fake news that we're talking about Russia collusion. Not fake news. Not fake news. But to talk about the non-fraud that was in this election. There's no fraud. No fraud. How dare you? How dare you? Interesting. All right. Anyway, so what were they? Yeah, I saw it. See all those companies moved to Texas. So Texas will probably be blue here shortly. The next probably 3 election cycles for sure. I'm starting to wonder. There's a guy, what's his name? He's a country guy from, let me see if I can't find him. Chris something. I got to find. He has a song from West Virginia. He's a country singer, kind of like an Americana country singer from West Virginia. Chris, let me see if I can't find him. I got to find my Amazon. Hold on just a second. There. Okay, Chris Stapleton, not Chris Stapleton. Hold on, Chris. Anybody know? Nice stuff. Chris, I can't remember. But anyway, he talks about anyway, there's a guy from West Virginia, like an Americana country singer. Old man. He's got a song called Old Man. I know that. Man, what's that guy's name? God, I can't believe I can't remember this guy. Yeah, I'm not gonna be able to remember him. How come I can't look at my own stuff here? My stuff, purchases, watch list. Oh, okay. Oh, it's Prime Video. No wonder why. I got to look at music. Hold on just a sec. But anyway, he's got this song about West Virginia. It's fantastic about how they're building. They're basically tearing down everything to build uh, to build all these they're tearing down the fact. No, it's not Neil Young. They're tearing everything down to build, jobs. They want jobs for the county, and it's interesting. It's like they're treating my grandpa's land like dirt, is what it's called. What the name of that song is? Oh, it's treating grandpa's land like dirt. Chris, I gotta find this guy now, man. It's not Chris Stapleton. Chris Brown. Jeez Louise. Yeah, I'm not sure. Anyway, the words you're looking for is overplayed. Okay. Iowa, man, Iowa. All right, so I'm just not tolerating liberals. I'm tired of it, man. So we're gonna hide. We're gonna find some liberals acting stupid. I'm just gonna get rid of them. Let's see. Chris Knight. That's it, Carolyn. Chris Knight. Yep. And that's it. So let me see if I can't find that song. Treat your grandfather's land like dirt. That's it. Good job, Carolyn. Are you from West Virginia? Good job on you. And I started thinking about like with the business friendly stuff. That's Georgia, Texas. You know what I'm saying? And then you start thinking like other states that aren't business friendly so much, aren't business friendly, if that makes sense. Who's actually better off? Look, I get it, man. It's easy to say when you're. I mean, it's just you're from Virginia, right on. What part of Virginia? Not Chris Stapleton. It's Chris Knight. What part of Virginia, Carolyn? Anyway, so Chris Knight, he's got the song "They're Treating My Grandfather's Land Like Dirt." You got to listen. It's fantastic. It's friggin' awesome. And I just started wondering, like, is it when you're business friendly, like big business friendly, when you're throwing out incentives to get these companies to move in? Is that, I don't know, at the end of the day, some of the left would argue, and somewhat rightly, is that we're so focused on GDP. Is that truly the best assessment of growth of humanity? And I don't know, man. Neil Young's old man. The old man, look at my life. I'm a lot like you are. And that's not that song. That's what you're talking about, right? Old man, look at my life. I'm a lot like you were. Yeah, this one's different. Chris Knight's his name. He's fantastic. We used to live, Carolyn. We used to live in right outside Harrisonburg, Virginia, in Dayton, where the Mennonites were running rampant there. Which is cool because all these Mennonites, not Amish, but Mennonites that have the horse and buggies going to be like a freaking convoy of Mennonites on going to church. So we're Catholic. We go to Catholic church and we get behind these convoys of Mennonites and the horse and buggies. It was cool, man. Nope, not gonna stop singing, Alan. Yeah, Oracle, HP, yep, getting the hell out of Dodge. But I just wonder, like, are you actually giving away some of your culture? I don't know. I just think about this. You know what I'm saying? I think about it because the politicians love their ability to sign off on. Look at what I did. I was able to bring in Oracle, and I was able to bring in such and such. Carl's Jr. moved in. I tell you, man, and I don't know. That's interesting. So. Anyway, the point about that is I'm not sure that growth by all means is what. Yeah, Harry moved out of Texas to Oklahoma. Exactly. All right, so let's see what else we got here. Yeah, Joe Rogan moving his liberal friends. Joe Rogan stuff is showing up again now on YouTube. Wasn't everyone griping that he got rid of it on YouTube and now it's back? What's that about? Well, the interesting thing is, Cute Humor says if Texas turns blue, Republicans will never win the presidency again. I don't know. I mean, think about it. Clinton won Kentucky. Clinton won Georgia. He did not win Indiana. I thought he did, but he did not. Iowa is now sharp on the red. Missouri is now sharp on the red. I think Clinton won Missouri too, actually. I think he did. Now, this is back in the day when the Republicans could win some of the other states too, but there's if it shifts one direction, there are other places to replace it. That makes sense. It seems if that makes sense. So I'm not saying tech is going to shift anytime soon, but at the end of the day, it's like I was talking to a guy yesterday. He's from born and raised California. California used to be a pretty right-wing state. Reagan was a governor. Remember that? Even the UC Berkeley president back during the hippie days. And these weren't hip. I mean, there's two types of hippies. Yeah, the SDS Nazis, and then you had the real hippies just smoking dope and going to Woodstock. Well, when the SDS fools are out there protesting, the UCB was the mayor. I think it was Mayor Berkeley, or was the UCB president? California Berkeley. I think it was the president, Asian guy. He said, "I'm not putting up with this crap." Or maybe it's the mayor. Maybe it was the mayor. It's an Asian guy, and he was a Democrat. He said, "We're not putting up with this crap." And now you got Ted Wheeler. But anyway, so the Republican Party, I mean, the Democrat, the Californians be conservative as all can be. And now look at it. And that's what I was telling this guy yesterday. I said, well, Texas will be that in less than a generation for sure. Some talk that in early mid next year there'll be a crash. It'll take years to recover. Each time we pump more money, we get less of a bump. I think that's 100% right. It's kind of like when you're addicted to something, the more addicted you are, the less it gives you. So you need more. That's what we're addicted to cheap money. That's a fact. And, we think if we can just keep going to that wheel or that well, we can just keep pulling out from the well, will be good. And then it doesn't work, man. It stops to work. It's crazy. And it's, look, man, I love my beer. And I bet if I drank a half a pint of Guinness now, I'd be drunk as a skunk with the monks. But back in my day, I can drink more beer than freaking Duffman. Remember Duffman? Because I loved it. But that's the facts are. The more you get addicted to something, the more you need to solve your need for that whatever you cause addiction. Any corporate bond funds that can take place at poor interest rate returns. Any corporate bond funds that can take place of poor interest rate returns. Why would corporate bonds not be suspect or subject to the same poor interest rates? I don't get it. I'm not following that, man. Because if there are low interest rates, there are going to be low corporate bond rates too. Right on. Alan says need for 2-income households impacted the birth rate in the U.S. I've been 100% agree with that. That going back to the whole thing of growth at all costs has actually been good for the overall state of humanity. I don't know. Japan, China, Germany, South Korea, Canada, all in democratic death spirals. Yep. Canada, yep. Germany, yep. Right on. Brian says the article he sent to me is how quarantines don't work. Like, the quarantines work, man. They work, Brian. How do I know? Because I know they work. Mexico seems relatively free with COVID, but then you have to deal with crime. I wonder if Mexico has that much crime as what we think. Like, everyone thinks America is so, like, if you go to, Japan, they probably think America's criminal, just crime everywhere. It's not. It's just not. It's in certain areas, and we all know what those areas are. And if you can avoid them, you can be fine. I mean, it's just that simple. There's not that much crime except in certain areas. You avoid those areas, you're fine. I wonder if that's the same thing with Mexico. And I got to tell you, never thought I would say, kudos to a socialist president, but ammo down there. I mean, I haven't seen what else he's doing. I'm sure he's doing all kinds of crazy stuff, but he's seemed to be common sense, more so than half our own Republicans here in the U.S. It's crazy. We have had it with shutdowns in Michigan. Restaurants are starting to disobey the dictator. Well, you're going to have to do that, man. I'm always welcome in York, Pennsylvania. Yeah, I don't want to go to York, PA. I say that because I know my man doesn't like it there. XOM, maybe goodbye with Sniffy Joe in. Price of oil up soon. Yeah, probably, Bruce. Price of oil, price of heating oil, natural gas, all that stuff is going up. How did Joe Biden said to that chick, I'm getting rid of all fossil fuels. I guarantee it. So when someone says he wants to get rid of all fossil fuels and Snopes fact checks it says a lie, how do you we have it on tape. He said, I promise you, I guarantee you, I will get rid of fossil fuels. How do you, how does Sleepy Sniffy Joe Steely Joe, we're gonna call him Steely Dan. How does Steely Dan, because I can't say Joe because he'll say something. How does Steely Dan get like fifth place in Iowa, fourth place in freaking New Hampshire, third place in some other place? And no one likes the guy in the Democratic caucus, Democratic primaries. Kamala, no one likes her. The blacks don't like her. No one likes her. And yet somehow, I mean, maybe it is. Maybe just Trump has so much animosity that everything's good to go. Just how? How? That doesn't make sense. Sniffy Joe was not liked. He was denied twice for his own party for president in 1988 and 2008 or something like that. I mean, he just wasn't there. He didn't even run in 2016 because the party was giving it away to freaking Hillary. It doesn't make sense, man. So I'm actually somewhat optimistic. I got to tell you, I said this last night, and I appreciate y'all being here, by the way. I'm optimistic because I think sometimes the Republicans, they don't have the staying power they need to fight the long fights, if that makes sense. So when they're always on defense, i.e., how do we defend Trump and the media? Because I think Republicans read the Atlanta Journal-Constitution. They read the New York Times. I don't know why they should not. They read all these papers, and they read Twitter. Trump needs to get the hell off Twitter. What the hell, dude? What are you doing? What are you doing, man? I know that's the only way just go to friggin' Parler. If you want to give Parler, I guess y'all can. If you want to give Parler a big boost, Trumpster should go there. And just say, I'm going for free speech. People follow you. They want to know what Trump is saying because half of them hate him and half love him. So it's a wonderful debate. Anyway, the point what I'm trying to say here is I have a sneaky suspicion, similar to Obamacare debacle, that Republicans are going to get somehow spines. Now, it's easy to have spines when you're on the outside looking in. I get it. But, man, it's going to be nice to see the Republican Party come back and at least pretend like they give two craps about freedom. You see what I'm saying? I mean, they're not once they take over in 2022, but at least they can pretend. And I'm actually wondering, though, if there are going to be enough radical Republicans in a good way, not radical Republicans from the northern Yankees in the 1800s, but radical Republicans who are saying, no, I'm radically for freedom, libertarian-minded Republicans, Rand Paul types, who are going to say, no, we're not put up with this anymore. We're done with that crap. You see what I'm saying? I'm wondering if there's going to be a number of them who run. And remember, you gotta start with state legislatures. You start with a state and you work your way up. The states where you start with to bring your agenda. The state is what is it, Bunsen burner? What is it called? The freaking thing. The experimental place of society. You start in the states, and so radical Republicans or libertarian Republicans will take over state legislatures and stuff, and start putting some good expansive policies in there, which would be fantastic. Knowing full well that. Look at what California's done. Look at what all Michigan's done. So they can say we're going to do the same damn thing here. You can't stop us. I think it'd be pretty cool. And as such, we have more judges that will support us as well now. Anyway, where I'm going with this is we all know what happened with a legitimate election, but no one likes Biden. No one likes Kamala. And as such, I could see a rejuvenated Republican Party that will learn to fight the good fight, not just rely on the Trumpster. And it's going to start from the states, and the states are going to pass legislation, and we got judges now to support, like voter ID. That no way that'll get kicked out in the Supreme Court now. No way. It could have before because Roberts is such a squish, but now no way. Now the drawback, frankly, is Thomas has got to stay in there until 2024. That's my concern. If Thomas goes, and we're right back to where we were, but. Because Breyer's going, which is another reason you got to vote for the in Georgia, man. You can't do what's the freaking Lynn Wood guy? What the hell is he talking about? I mean, I like him, but stop saying don't vote. The election's rigged. It is, but you still got to vote. We can't have freaking Biden getting insane liberal justices on there who are 22 years old. He'll get what's that kid's name from the anti-gun guy, the clown from Florida, who's someone got shot in his school and he's like all David Fogg or something like that, David Hogg. Biden will put that clown on there. You know what I'm saying? It just can't have. You gotta have somebody who's at least somewhat not crazy left. Anyway, I'm somewhat. I think there could be a little bit of a rejuvenated Republican Party that doesn't have to. Almost like when George W. Bush left, they fought back. They got rejuvenated. The Tea Party, then the Trumpster, and I think we might see that again. I'm open. I think it's going to be Tea Party ×2 because now there won't be a black president. Now Kamala, she'll take over for Biden, but we've already gone through the first black president thing, so no one's gonna be like, "Oh my God, I can't be called a racist." I was listening today to McCain's campaign advisor, who said, "There's no way we can use Jeremiah Wright against Obama because that's racist." And he was proud of it. He said, I'm the guy who wouldn't allow McCain to use Jeremiah Wright against Obama because that'd be racist. And McCain got all of 173 electoral votes, and he lost by 10 million. And we got Obamacare. So we got our health insurance taken away. But this guy, Steve Schmidt, he's living large on MSNBC and raising money from liberal Republicans, actually, I'm sure Soros and whatnot, to bash Republican Party. He's actually their camp. I got a thing from him just the other day. Say, don't vote for Kelly Loeffler. She's rotten to the core. I'm like, dude, oh my, this is supposed to be Republicans. Nuts. All right, let's see what else we got here. Joe has dementia. She'll be our first female president. Yeah, that no one's gonna care though, man. Yeah, I agree, Pulver. I think McCain would have been at worse. That's the thing. George W. Bush, McCain would have been worse. He would have been worse than Obama. I truly believe that because the Republican Party would have, again, politics is about winning. That's a fact. The Republican Party said we're going to support McCain even though he's nuts, even though he's a big government. He's just not a good guy. And we would have lost. We would have abandoned any freedom, and then we got smoked in 2010. So 2010, the Tea Party came around, and that stopped the Obama agenda on its tracks right there. Even though Boehner was a clown, but Boehner had no problem. Kamala putting people in jail for marijuana, none at all. Kamala says she smoked dope in college or whatever, and Boehner now is on the board of a freaking marijuana company. I'm like, but you had no problem people going to jail for smoking marijuana, but now it's a freaking scumbags. They're all scumbags. But at the end of the day, at least we had the House of Representatives to freaking arrest Obama's agenda, which was fantastic. It really was. I tell you, gridlock's a good thing. Gridlock's a good thing. They can't pass stuff. By and large, they can't pass big legislation that can strip you of your freedom. So gridlock's not a bad thing for sure. If McCain would have won, the Republicans would have been just, oh my goodness, it would have been bad. Oh yeah, McCain would have bomb Iran. Remember that bomb Iran? That's funny. I was like, dude, you freaking clown. Exactly. If McCain won, we would have been worried about another war for sure. And Sniffy Joe, the war machine loves him, man. The war machine loves Sniffy Joe. They hated Trump because Trump was. Look what's going on in the Middle East, man. Look what's going on in the Middle East. It's amazing to me, the peace in the Middle East. Israelis are going to UAE. It's nuts. I just think it's great. You don't hear anything about the Palestinians. It's nuts. My man says, yeah, I heard that, Kirk. So Tony Dungy said we got a black pastor from Georgia who's pro-choice. Is he even Christian? I heard Tony Dungy saying that, man. Do I still recommend VFIIX as the cash bucket? Yep, I think 100%. Whoever asked that, Jim Krejci, yes sir. I love VFIIX. That is the Ginnie Mae fund. Big fan. Lie, cheat and steal. They lie, cheat and steal. You know who that is? You all know who? Lie. Oh, Rick. If Nikki Haley's a nominee, I'm not voting for her. I'll tell you that right now. I won't. No way. I can't stand Nikki Haley. Don't tell my wife. She gets pissed when I say that. She loves Nikki Haley. Ben Shapiro put something out the other day. Said, take the vaccine, dopes. Ben Shapiro's a conservative? What? Ben Shapiro's Jewish. What are you doing? This untested thing that's just rushed out there, and you're going to tell people are dopes to not take the vaccine? It's like someone who put it out there, Wayne Dupree on Parler. He said, wait a second, man. We tested all these things on blacks in the 1920s and 30s in Tuskegee, whatever it is. He goes, now you expect blacks to just say, hey, give me this vaccine? Crazy. And Ben Shapiro, he said, take the vaccine, dopes. What? If I, man, I need to come up with a marketing plan. You know what I'm going to do? My next retirement course is going to be called The Vaccine. Oh, everyone will buy it because they say, oh, vaccine. It must be okay. It must be proven. It must be legit. It says vaccine. The word somehow means something to people. The vaccine. It's great. There can't be anything wrong with that. The government never lies. The vaccine. I'm like, what? Crazy. Yeah, David Hogg, that's it. Not Marco Rubio, can't stay. No, not going Marco, not going Nikki. It's Rand Paul, Thomas Massey. I still like Ted Cruz, but I think he rubs people wrong. Trump was able to connect. I don't think Ted Cruz can do that. He can do that for me, but if you're not kind of I don't want to say an intellectual, that sounds arrogant, but Ted Cruz comes at it from a different perspective. That's not all that endearing to many people who aren't all that active and engaged in this stuff. Rand Paul's pretty good. I would love to see Ron Paul again, just to freaking shake everybody up. I don't know who else we got. I'd love to see a black guy, an Alan West. I'd love to see a black guy who's freaking, hell's bells, balls to the wall. And we got a lot of freaking up and coming black guys in the Republican Party. It's just off top, and you can't, John James, he lost twice. He got to be a winner. Unlike Kamala. Well, I guess Kamala did win Senate, didn't she? Yeah. I'm not sure who it would be. You know what we need, actually? A Spanish guy, like a Mexican American. Not a Cuban. I love Cubans. Love them. We need to appeal to Mexican Americans. That'd be pretty cool. If we got a Mexican American go up there. And I remember I was all about Jeb Bush a long, long time ago because his wife was Mexican. So that's pretty cool. We got to expand our horizons with Mexicans and Mexican Americans. And then, of course, it turned out Jeb Bush was just I wonder who would be a Mexican. And I love Cubans. Love them. Cubans and Mexicans are not the same. They're just not. If we could get some Mexican American in there, I don't know who it'd be. If anyone has any ideas, like a righteous Mexican American, go up there and kick buck, take names, to say I'm against socialism. Oh, how awesome that'd be. That'd be fantastic. A Venezuelan? That'd be neat. Let's see. Petri dish. That's right, Pop Stew. That's right. I love his slow turtle comment. Who made it? If Trump goes to Parler, they'll find a way to shut down Parler. No, they can't shut down. I mean, hell, I guess they could, man. I don't know. Yeah, Trump. What I hope is Trump. I hope he gets juiced. I hope he takes steroids and gets freaking juiced. You know what I'm saying? Gets jacked like a WWF ref. So I guess WWE now gets jacked, gets tats, and comes in there freaking goateed up, shaves his head, and said, "I'm ready. Let's roll, Sniffy Joe." And of course, Sniffy Joe will be gone. Let's roll. I'd love to see Trump come in there just freaking juiced up as all can be. Say, we're ready to take on CCP. Let's go, baby. Oh, how awesome that would be. Oh, man. How does Kamala Harris not? Yeah, exactly. Tim says, I have to move south or we'll have no oil in the winter. I tell you, man, that's a concern, brother. All right, so let's see here. I like Jeb because the racist wife. No, Jeb was actually a lot more conservative than George back in the 90s, for sure. Jeb was the more right-wing. And when I say right-wing, not big, less big government type. George was more big government type, for sure. George was a compassionate conservative. We can make government work in a conservative way. Jeb wasn't like that. And the fact he had a Mexican wife, Mexican-American wife, was very appealing because we have to, the Republican Party, look, man, whites are not the majority in many states anymore. They're just not. And I'm white. I'm not ashamed of it. I'm not proud of it. I just am. It is what God made me. I got no shame, no guilt, no nothing. And I'm not proud. It's just, I am who I am. But the idea that whites inherently the Republican Party is going to be dominated predominantly by whites. We're changing it right now, which is good. And so yes, and that's when identity politics and politics works, man. It's just a fact. Now, I don't like it. I wish it were not true, but it is. And to deny that is to be silly. So the fact that Jeb Bush was married to a Mexican American, I thought was pretty endearing to me back then, because Jeb was a more conservative guy. You see what I'm saying? Now it turns out that didn't matter. It turns out that so. But at the end of the day, I'm all right. I'm all right with that. I look, man. I love minorities in the Republican Party. I think it's fantastic. I love it. Love it. Is that discriminatory against whites? So be it. We got to win. And if a black guy or a freaking Mexican American woman or anything like that, they can get in there and kick butt and take names, and they got a good story behind it, I love it. The last thing we need is a career, I'm Joe Biden, or and that's why I like Marco Rubio, by the way. He took on the establishment in 2010. He took on Charlie Crist. And he was the rabble rouser. He was a Tea Party guy, but then, he got the big lights of DC. But if we get a guy with a good Thomas Massey, he's a white guy, love him. His story is fantastic. He's more green than any freaking green guy is. I'll tell you that right now. Joel Salatin from Virginia. He's a farmer up in Polyface Farms in Virginia, in Stanton, Virginia. A white guy. The story though, we've just got some guy freaking just another run of the mill white guy from DC who's been in politics. Man. I like my guy, the Montana governor, Gianforte or something like that. He just won in Montana. As a takeaway for the Republicans. Now we have a trifecta in Montana. I like him. I like his story. Hell, my man Mike Lindell, the freaking pillow guy, the guy from Papa John's. I listened to him on a Sebastian Gorka interviewed him the other day. Big fan of that guy. I like it. So there's lots of different guys. The story is what matters, not the experience of politicians. Crenshaw. You hear Crenshaw? He tore up again. I think it was AOC again. She's so easy. What did I forgot what he said. I forgot what it was, but it's just idiotic. The Goya guy. Yeah. Oh, that's a good one, man. As much as no, I got you. Eric says he's worried if Trump runs. I get it, Eric. I kind of I think by 4 years from now, man, we're Bush grandkids. I know George P. I'm the last thing we need is a dynasty. We don't need a dynasty, man. We don't need a dynasty. And we don't need Trump kids. We don't need Donald Jr., which seems like a good guy. Eric Trump seems like a good guy. I do not like Ivanka I don't trust her. I don't trust Jared. They seem like they've done good on the Middle East peace talk stuff. I'll give them credit for that. I don't want them running for president. They have no appeal to me at all. Woman from South Dakota. Yeah. What's her name? Kristi Noem. Yeah. Big fan. Yes. Devin Nunes. Yeah, I agree. All right. So I want to end here tonight. I want to read a little bit of the Screw Tape letters. So let's read just a tad, shall we? And we are going to read Screw Tape proposes a toast. Because as we're sitting here and just like, man, what's going to happen here? What's going to happen? Remember, the enemy is still out there. And it's not, look, Joe Biden's a clown. I get it. Kamal's a clown. The CCP are enemies for sure. But there's a deeper enemy. The deeper enemy is the devil. So if you haven't read Screw Tape, we're going to read this. And this is the last chapter of Screw Tape proposes a toast. Now, the premise of this is Screw Tape is a tempter. Right, he's training his nephew Wormwood. Pence. No, can't have Pence. I get exactly right. I'm okay with Candace Owens. I wasn't not fond of her, but I'm okay with Candace. I've seen her now a couple times. I've actually I didn't really pay much mind to her, but now I've seen her. I was like, she's actually good. I like her a lot. So Screw Tape is a tempter, and he's trying to train his nephew Wormwood on how to tempt this guy's soul in the UK during the Great War, World War II. Thankfully, the guy is going back and forth. It looks like he might fall, so spoiler alert, but he does not. He refrains from the temptation, and he finds Jesus. It's fantastic, the ending. So Screw Tape now. So Wormwood now becomes food for Screw Tape. And Screwtape lives to fight another day as a tempter, and he's going to train other tempters. All right. So Screwtape proposes a toast. I was often asked or advised to add to the original Screwtape letters, but this is from C.S. Lewis. But for many years, I felt not in the least inclination to do it. Though I had never written anything more easily, I never wrote with less enjoyment. This is C.S. Lewis's words himself. The ease came, no doubt, from the fact that the device of the diabolical letters, once you have thought of it, exploits itself spontaneously, like Swift's Big and Little Men, or the medical or ethical philosophy of Erewhon. Erewhon, you know what I'm saying? Or the medical, or Ansie's Garuda Stone. I don't know what that is. It would run away with you for 1,000 pages if you gave it its head. But though it was easy to twist one's mind into diabolical attitude, it was not fun and not for long. The strain produced a sort of spiritual cramp. The world into which I project myself while I spoke through Screwtape was all dust, grit, thirst, and it had to be excluded. It almost smothered me before I was done. I would have smothered my readers if I had prolonged it. So the interesting thing that Screwtape is saying here is that, not Screwtape, C.S. Lewis is saying is once you allow the bad stuff to settle in, it is addictive and it can take over. It's kind of like if you listen like to real bad music, and I do sometimes, like some heavy metal makes you kind of angry. You know what I'm saying? Some heavy metal music, on top of some negative stuff I'm not on Twitter, but Facebook, how to get off Facebook, because it's debilitating to me. It really ticked me off. I had, moreover, a sort of grudge against my book for not being a different book, which no one would write. Ideally, Screwtape's advice to Wormwood should have been balanced by an archangel advice to the patient's guardian angel. Without this picture of human life, it is lopsided. But who could supply the deficiency? Even if a man, and he would have to be far better than I, could scale the spiritual heights required, what answerable style could he use? For the style would really be part of the content. Mere advice would be no good. Every sentence would have to smell of heaven. And nowadays, even if you write prose like Trahearn's, I don't even know who that is, you wouldn't be allowed to, for the canon of functionalism has disabled literature for half its functions. At bottom, every ideal of style dictates not only how we should say things, but what sort of things we may say. Then, as the years went on and the stifling experience of writing the letters became a weaker memory, reflections on this and that, which seemed somehow to demand Screwtapian treatment, began to occur. I was resolved never to write another letter. The idea of something like a lecture or address hovered vaguely in my mind, now forgotten, now recalled, never written. Then came an invitation from the Saturday Evening Post, and that pressed the trigger. This is Screwtape proposes a toast. The scene is in hell at the annual dinner of the Tempters Training College for Young Devils. The principal, Dr. Slubgob, has just proposed the health of the guest. Screwtape, who's a guest of honor, rises to reply. Mr. Principal, your eminence, your disgraces, my thorns, shadies, and gentle devils. It is customary on these occasions for the speaker to address himself chiefly to those among you who have just graduated and who very soon will be posted to official tempterships on earth. It is a custom I willingly obey. I well remember with what trepidation I awaited my first own appointment. I hope and believe that each of you has the same uneasiness tonight. Your career is before you. Hell expects and demands that it should be, as mine was, one of unbroken success. If it is not, you know what awaits you. I have no wish to reduce the wholesome and realistic element of terror, the unremitting anxiety which must act as a lash and spur to your own endeavors. How often you will envy the humans their faculty of sleep. Yet at the same time, I would wish to put before you a moderately encouraging view of the strategical situation as a whole. Your dreaded principal has included in a speech full of points something like an apology for the banquet which we have set before us. Well, gentle devils, no one blames him. But it would be vain to deny that the human souls on whose anguish we have been feasting tonight were of pretty poor quality. Not all the most skillful cookery of our tormentors could make them better than insipid. Oh, to get one's teeth into Farinata, a Henry VIII, or even a Hitler. That was a real crackling there, something to crunch, a rage, an egotism, a cruelty only just less robust than our own. It put up a delicious resistance to being devoured. It warmed your innards when you get it down. Instead of this, what do we have tonight? There is a municipal authority with graft sauce. But personally, I could not detect in him the flavor of a really passionate and brutal avarice, such as delighted one in the great tycoons of the last century. Was he not unmistakably a little man, a creature of the petty rake-off, pocketed with a petty joke in private, and denied the stalest platitudes in his public utterances? A grubby little nonentity who has drifted into corruption, only just realizing that he was corrupt, and chiefly just because everyone else was doing it. Then there is a lukewarm casserole of the adulterers. Could you find in it in any trace a fully inflamed, defiant, rebellious, insatiable lust? I couldn't. They all tasted to me like undersexed morons who had blundered or trickled into the wrong beds in automatic response to sexy advertisements, or to make themselves feel modern and emancipated, or to reassure themselves about their virility and their normalcy, or even because they had nothing else to do. Frankly, to me, who have tasted Casanova, they were nauseating. The trade unionist garnished with claptrap was perhaps a shade better. He had done some real harm. He had, not quite unknowingly, worked for bloodshed, famine, and the extinction of liberty. Yes, in a way, but what a way. He thought of those ultimate objectives so little: towing the party line, self-importance, and above all, mere routine were what really dominated his life. But now comes the point. Gastronomically, all this is deplorable. But I hope none of us puts gastronomy first. Is it not, in another and far more serious way, full of hope and promise? Consider first the mere quantity. The quality may be wretched, but we have never had souls in more abundance. And then the triumph. We are tempted to say that such souls, or such residual puddles of what was once a soul, are hardly worth damning. Yes, but the enemy, for whatever inscrutable and perverse reason, thought them worth trying to save. Believe me, he did. You youngsters who have not yet been on active service have no idea with what labor, with what delicate skill each of these miserable creatures was finally captured. The difficulty lay in their very smallness and flabbiness. Here were vermin so muddled in mind, so passively responsive to environment, that it's hard to raise them to that level of clarity and deliberateness at which mortal sin becomes possible. To raise them just enough, but not that fatal millimeter of too much. For then, of course, all would have possibly been lost. They might have seen and they might have repented. On the other hand, if they had been raised too little, they would have possibly qualified for limbo as creatures suitable for neither heaven or hell go. Things that, having failed to make the grade, are allowed to sink into a more or less contented subhumanity forever. And each individual choice of what the enemy will call the wrong turning, such creatures are at first hardly, if at all, in a state of full spiritual responsibility. They do not understand either the source or the real character of the prohibitions they are breaking. Their consciousness hardly exists apart from the social atmosphere that surrounds them. And of course, we have contrived that their very language should be all smudge and blur. What would be a bribe in someone else's profession is a tip or present in their own. The first job of the tempters was to harden these choices of the hell word, rose into a habit by steady repetition. But then, and this was all important, was to turn the habit into a principle the creature is prepared to defend. And after that, all will go well. Conformity to the social environment, at first merely instinctive or even mechanical. How should a jelly not conform? Now becomes an acknowledged creed or ideal of togetherness or being like folks. Mere ignorance of the law they break now turns to a vague theory about it. Remember, they don't know history. A theory expressed by calling it conventional or Puritan or bourgeois morality. Thus, gradually there comes to exist at the center of the creature a hard, tight, settled core of resolution to go on being what it is and even to resist moods that might tend to alter it. It is a very small core, not at all reflective, because they are too ignorant, nor defiant. Their emotional and imaginative poverty excludes that. Almost in its own way, prim and demure, like a pebble or a very young cancer. But it will serve our turn. Here at last is real and deliberate, though not fully articulate, rejection of what the enemy calls grace. These then are two welcome phenomena. First, the abundance of our captures. However tasteless our fare, we are in no danger of famine. And secondly, the triumph. The skill of our tempters has never been greater. But the third moral, which I've not yet drawn in, is the most important of all. The sort of souls whose despair and ruin we have, well, I won't say we feasted on, but at any rate subsisted tonight, are increasing in numbers and will continue to increase. Our advices from the lower command assure us that this is so. Our directives warn us to orient all our tactics in view of this situation. The great sinners, those who in vivid and genial passions have been pushed beyond the bounds and in whom immense concentration of will has been devoted to objects which the enemy abhors, will not disappear, but they will grow rarer. Our catches will be ever more numerous, but they'll consist increasingly of trash which we should have once thrown to Cerebius and the hellhounds as unfit for a diabolical consumption. And there are two things I want you to understand. First, how depressing it may seem, it is really a change for the better. And second, I would draw your attention to the means by which it has been brought about. It is a change for the better. The great sinners are made of the very same material as the horrible phenomenon, the great saints. The virtual disappearance of such material may mean insipid meals for us, but is it not utter frustration and famine for the enemy? He did not create the humans. He did not become one of them to die and live among them by torture in order to produce candidates for limbo. He wanted to make saints. He wanted gods, things like himself. Is the dullness of your present fare not a very small price to pay for the delicious knowledge that his whole great experiment is petering out? As the great sinners grow fewer and the majority lose all individuality, the great sinners become far more effective against us, or agents for us. The great sinners become far more effective agents for us. Every dictator or even demagogue, almost every film star or crooner, can now draw tens of thousands of the human sheep with them. They give themselves, what there is of them, to him and him to us. There may come a time when we shall have no need to bother about individual temptation at all, except for the few. Catch the bellwether and his whole flock comes after him. Yep. But do you realize how we succeeded in reducing so many of the human race to the level of ciphers? This has not come about by accident. It has been our answer, and a magnificent answer it is, to one of the most serious challenges we ever had to face. Let me recall to your minds what the human situation was in the latter half of the 19th century. The period at which I ceased to be a practicing tempter and was rewarded with an administrative post. The great movements toward liberty and equality among men had been born solid, fruit and grown mature. Slavery had been abolished. The American War of Independence had been won. The French Revolution had succeeded. Religious toleration was almost everywhere on the increase. In that moment, there had been originally many elements which were in our favor. Much atheism, much anti-clericalism, much envy and thirst for revenge. Even some attempts to revive paganism were mixed in it. It was not easy to determine what our own attitude should be. On the one hand, it was a bitter blow to us, it still is, that any sort of men who had been hungry should be fed, and any who had long wore chains should have them struck off. But on the other hand, there was a movement, so much rejection of faith, that we felt we were bound to encourage it. But by the latter part of the century, the situation was much simpler and much more ominous. In the English sector, a horrible thing happened. The enemy, with his usual sleight of hand, had largely appropriated this progressive and liberalizing movement and perverted it to his own ends. Very little of his old anti-Christianity remained. The dangerous phenomenon called Christian socialism was rampant. Factory owners of the good old type who grew rich on sweated labor, instead of being assassinated by the work people, were being frowned upon by their own class. The rich were increasingly giving up their powers, not in the face of revolution and compulsion, but in obedience to their own consciousness. As for the poor who benefited by this, they were behaving in a most disappointing fashion. Instead of using their new liberties for massacre, rape, and looting, or even for perpetual intoxication, they were perversely engaged in becoming cleaner, more orderly, more thrifty, better educated, and even more virtuous. Believe me, the threat of something like a really healthy state of society seemed then perfectly serious. I guess say it again. The threat of a really healthy state of society seemed perfectly serious. Thanks to our Father below, the threat was averted. Our counterattack was on two levels. On the deepest levels, our dealers contrived to call into full life an element which had been implicit in the movement from its earliest days. Hidden in the heart of this striving for liberty, there was also deep hatred of personal freedom. That invaluable man Rousseau first revealed it. In his perfect democracy, remember, only the state religion is permitted, slavery is restored, and the individual is told that he has really willed, though he didn't know it, whatever the government tells him to do. Think about it. In the perfect democracy by Rousseau, only the state religion is permitted. Slavery is restored, and the individual is told that he has really willed whatever the government has told him. From that starting point via Hegel, another indispensable propagandist on our side, we easily contrive both the Nazi and communist state. Even in England, we're pretty successful. I heard the other day that in that country, a man could not, without a permit, cut down his own tree with his own axe, make it into planks with his own saw, and use the planks to build a tool shed in his own garden. Even in England, we were successful. A man in that country could not, without a permit, cut down his own tree with his own axe, make it into planks with his own saw, and use the planks to build a tool shed in his own garden. Such was our counterattacks. You, who are beginners, will not be entrusted with work of that kind. You'll be attached as tempters to private persons. Against them and through them, our counterattack takes a different form. Democracy is a word of which you must lead them by the nose. The good work with which our philological experts have already done in the corruption of humanity, corruption of human language, makes it unnecessary to warn you that they should never be allowed to give this word a clear and definable meaning. They won't. It will never occur to them that democracy is properly the name of a political system, even a system of voting, and that this has only the most remote and tenuous connection with what you are trying to sell them. Nor of course, must they ever be allowed to raise Aristotle's question, whether democratic behavior means the behavior that democracies like or the behavior that will preserve a democracy. For if they did, it could hardly fail to occur to them that these need not be the same. You are to use the word purely as an incantation, if you like, purely for a selling power. It is a name they venerate, and of course is connected with a political ideal that men should be equally treated. You then make a stealthy transition in their minds from this political ideal to a factual belief that men are all equal, especially the man you are working on. As a result, you can use the word democracy to sanction his thought, the most degrading and also the least enjoyable of all human feelings. You can get him to practice, not only without shame, but with a positive glow of self-approval, conduct, which, if undefended by that magic word, democracy, would be universally derided. The feeling, of course, is which prompts a man to say, I'm as good as you. The first and most obvious advantage is that when thus you induce him to enthrone at the center of his life a good, solid, resounding lie. I don't mean merely that a statement is false, that he is no more equal to everyone else he meets in kindness, honesty, and in good sense and in height or weight measurement. I mean that he does not believe it himself. No man who says I'm as good as you actually believes it. He would not say it if he did. The Saint Bernard never says it to the toy dog, nor the pretty woman to the plane. The claim to equality outside the strictly political field is made only by those who feel themselves to be some way inferior. What it expresses is precisely the itching, the smarting, the writhing awareness of inferiority in which a patient refuses to accept and therefore resents. Yes, and therefore resents every kind of superiority in others, denigrates it, wishes its annihilation. Presently, he suspects every mere difference of being a claim to superiority. No one must be different from himself in voice, clothes, manners, recreations, or choice of food. Here is someone who speaks English rather more clearly than I. It must be a vile, upstage, la-di-da affection. Here's a fellow who says he doesn't like hot dogs. Thinks himself too good for them, no doubt. Here's a man who hasn't turned on the jukebox. He must be one of those highbrow, and he's doing it to show off. If they were the right sort of chaps, they'd be like me. There's no business to be different. It's undemocratic. Now, this useful phenomenon is in itself by no means new. Under the name of envy, has been known to the humans for thousands of years. But they always regarded it as most odious and almost comical of vices. Those who were aware of feeling it felt with shame. Those who were not gave it no quarter in others. The delightful novelty of the present situation is that you can sanction it, make it respectable and even laudable by the incantatory use of the word democratic. Under the influence of this incantation, those who are in every way inferior can labor wholeheartedly and successfully than ever before to pull down everyone else to their level. But that is not all. Under the same influence, those who come or could come nearer to full humanity actually draw back from it, from the fear of being undemocratic. I am credibly informed that young humans now sometimes suppress an incipient taste for classical music or good literature because it might prevent them being like folks. That people who would really wish to be and are offered the grace which could enable them to be honest, chaste, temperate, refuse it. To accept them might make that different, might offend the way of life, take them out of togetherness, impair their integration with a group. They might, horror of horrors, become individuals. All is summed up in prayer, which a young female is said to have uttered recently. Oh God, make me a normal 20th century girl, and thanks to our labors, this will mean increasingly, make me a minx, a moron, and a parasite. Oh, man. Meanwhile, as a delightful byproduct, the fewer and fewer every day who will not be made normal and regular and like folks and integrated increasingly tend to become, in reality, the prigs and cranks which the rabble would in any cause believe them to be. For suspicion often creates what it suspects. Since whatever I do, the neighbors are going to think me a witch or a communist agent, I might as well be hanged for a sheep as a lamb and become one in reality. As a result, we now have an intelligentsia, which, though very small, is very useful to the cause of hell. But that is a mere byproduct. What I want to fix your attention on is the vast overall movement towards the discrediting and finally the elimination of every kind of human excellence, moral, cultural, social, intellectual. And is it not pretty to notice how democracy is now doing for us the work that was once done by the most ancient dictatorships and by the same methods? You remember how one of the Greek dictators, they used to call them tyrants then, sent an envoy to another dictator to ask his advice about the principles of government. The second dictator led the envoy into a field of corn, and there he snicked off with his cane the top of every stalk that rose an inch or so above the general level. The moral was plain. Allow no preeminence among your subjects. Let no man live who is wiser or better or more famous or even more handsome than the mass. Cut them all down to a level, all slaves, all ciphers, all nobodies, all equals. Thus, tyrants could practice, in a sense, democracy. But now democracy can do the same work without any other tyranny than her own. No one need go through a field with a cane. The little stalks will now of themselves bite the tops of the big ones. The big ones are beginning to bite their own and their desire to be like folks. I've said that to secure the damnation of these little souls, these creatures that have almost ceased to be individual, is laborious and tricky work. But if proper pains and skill are expended, you can be fairly confident of the result. The great sinners seem easier to catch, but then they are incalculable. After you play them for 70 years, the enemy may snatch them from your claws in the 71st. They are capable, you see, of real repentance. They're conscious of real guilt. They are, if things take the wrong turn, as ready to defy the social pressures around them for the enemy's sake as they were to defy them for ours. It is in some way more troublesome to track and swat an evasive wasp than to shoot at a close range a wild elephant. But the elephant is more troublesome if you miss. My own experience was mainly that in this English sector, and I still get more news from it than any other. It may be that what I'm now going to say will not apply fully to sectors in which some of you may be operating, but you can make the necessary adjustments when you get there. In that promising land, England, the spirit of "I'm as good as you" has already become something more than a generally social influence. It begins to work itself into their education system. Cultural Marxism. How far its operations there have gone at the present moment, I would not like to say with certainty, nor does it matter. Once you have grasped the tendency, you can easily predict its future developments, especially as we ourselves will play our part in the developing. The basic principle of the new education is that the dunces and the idlers must not be made to feel inferior to the intelligent and industrious pupils. That would be undemocratic. These differences between the pupils, for they are obviously and nakedly individual differences, must be disguised. That can be done on various levels. At universities, examinations must be framed so that nearly all the students get good marks. Entrance exams must be framed that so all or nearly all citizens can go to universities, whether they have any power to profit by higher education or not. At schools, the children who are too stupid or lazy to learn languages and math and elementary science can be set to doing things that children used to do in their spare time. Let them, for example, make mud pies and call it modeling. But all the time, there must be no faintest hint that they are inferior to the children who are at work. Whatever nonsense they are engaged in must have parity of esteem. This is written in the 1940s. An even more drastic scheme is not impossible. Children who are fit to proceed to a higher class may be artificially kept back because the others would get a trauma. Beelzebub, what a useful word, by being left behind. The bright pupil thus remains democratically fettered to his own age group throughout his school career. And a boy who would be capable of tackling Dante or Aeschylus, sits listening to the Covilles attempt to spell out "a cat sat on the mat." In a word, we may reasonably hope for the virtual abolition of education when "I'm as good as you" has fully had his way. Right, we're right here right now. It's crazy. All incentives to learn and all penalties for not learning will vanish. The few who might want to learn will be prevented. Who are they to overtop their fellows? And anyway, the teachers, or should I say nurses, will be far too busy reassuring the dunces and patting them on the back to waste any time on real teaching. We shall no longer have to plan and toil to spread the imperturbable conceit and incurable ignorance among men. The little vermin will do it for us, will do it themselves. Of course, this would not follow unless all education became state education. This would not follow unless all education became state education. But it will. That is a part of the same movement. Penal taxes designed for that purpose are liquidating the middle class. The class who are prepared to save and spend and make sacrifices in order to have their children privately educated. The removal of this class, besides linking up with the abolition of education, is fortunately an inevitable effect of the spirit that says, "I'm as good as you." This was, after all, the social group which gave to humans the overwhelming majority of the scientists, physicians, philosophers, theologians, poets, artists, composers, architects, jurists, and administrators. If ever there was a bunch of tall stocks that needed their tops knocked off, it was surely they. As an English politician remarked not long ago, a democracy does not want great men. It would be idle to ask of such a creature whether by want it means needs or like, but you had better be clear, for here Aristotle's question comes up again. We in hell would welcome the disappearance of democracy in the strict sense of the word, the political arrangement, that is. Like all forms of government, it often works to our advantage, but on the whole, less often than other forms. And what we must realize is that democracy, in the diabolical sense, I'm as good as you, is the finest instrument we could possibly have for extirpating political democracies from the face of the earth. For democracy, or the democratic spirit, leads to a nation without great men, a nation mainly of subliterates, morally flaccid from lack of discipline and youth, full of the cocksureness which flattery breeds on ignorance, and soft from lifelong pampering. And that is what hell wishes every democratic people to be. For when such a nation meets in conflict, a nation where children have been made to work at school, where talent is placed in high posts, and where the ignorant mass are allowed to have no say at all in public affairs, only one result is possible. You hear that? When such a nation meets in conflict, a nation where children are actually working at school, only one result is possible. One democracy was surprised lately when it found that Russia had got ahead of it in science. What a delicious specimen of human blindness. If the whole tendency of their society is opposed to every sort of excellence, why did they expect their scientists to succeed? It is our function to encourage this behavior, the manners, the whole attitude of mind which democracies naturally like and enjoy, because these are the very things that will ultimately destroy democracy. You would almost wonder that even humans don't see it themselves. Even if they don't read Aristotle, that would be undemocratic. You would have thought the French Revolution would have taught them that the behavior aristocrats naturally like is not the behavior that preserves aristocracy. They might have then applied the same principles to all forms of government. But I would not end on that note. I would not. Hell forbid. Encourage in your own minds a delusion which you must carefully foster in the minds of your human victims. I mean, the delusion that the fate of nations is in itself more important than that of individual souls. The overthrow of free peoples and multiplication of slave states are for us a means, but the real end is the destruction of the individual. For only individuals can be saved and damned, can become sons of the enemy or food for us. Only individuals, not nations. The ultimate value for us of any revolution, war, or famine lies in the individual anguish, treachery, hatred, rage, and despair which it may produce. I'm as good as you is useful means for the destruction of democratic societies, but as a far deeper value as an end in itself, as a state of mind, which necessarily, excluding humility, charity, contentment, and all the pleasures of gratitude and or admiration, turns a human being away from almost every road which might finally lead him to God. But now, for the pleasant part of my duty, it falls on my lot to propose on behalf of the guests of the health of the principal slub god and the Tempter's Training College. Fill your glasses. What is this I see? What is this delicious bouquet I inhale? Can it be, Mr. Principal? I unsay all my hard words about the dinner. I see and smell that even under wartime conditions, the college cellar still has a few dozen of sound old vintage Pharisee. Well, this is like old times. Hold it beneath your nostrils for a moment, gentle devils. Hold it up to the light. Look at those fiery streaks that writhe and tangle in his dark heart as if they were contending. And so they are. You know how this wine is blended? Different types of Pharisee have been harvested, trodden, and fermented together to produce a subtle flavor. Types that were most antagonistic towards one another on earth. Some were all rules and relics and rosaries. Others were all drab clothes, long faces, and petty traditional absences from wine or cards or the theater. Both had in common their self-righteousness and the almost infinite distance between their actual outlook and anything but the enemy really is or commands. The wickedness of other religions was a really live doctrine in the religion of each. Let me read that again. The wickedness of the other religions was the really live doctrine in the religion of each. Slander was his gospel, and denigration its litany. How they hated each other up there where the sun shone. How much more they hate each other now that they are forever conjoined but not reconciled. Their astonishment, their resentment at the combination, the festering of their internally impotent spite, passing into our spiritual digestion will work like fire, dark fire. All said and done, my friends, it will be an ill day for us. What most humans mean by religion ever vanishes from earth. It will be an ill day for us when religion ever vanishes from earth. This is the devil talking here. It can still send us to truly delicious sins. The fine flower of unholiness can grow only in the close neighborhood of the holy. Nowhere do we tempt so successfully. Nowhere do we tempt so successfully as on the very steps of the altar. Nowhere do we tempt so successfully as on the very steps of the altar. Man. I got to read this once a year to keep my head on a trait, man. Damn. Yeah, it's nuts. See, this was written in the 40s. Nowhere do we tempt so successfully as on the very steps of the altar. When all is said and done, it will be an ill day for us if what most humans mean by religion ever vanishes from the earth. Woo. Man. If you need a slap in the face to recognize the insanity of worrying too much about Trump and Biden, here you go. If you need a prophet of what is happening in our schools, what is happening in our society, of equality, where no one, how dare you freaking be smart and successful? How dare you have gratitude? How dare you try to be different or an individual? Is that true? Is Chernobyl Russian for wormwood? No way, man. No way. Oh, that's all right. We've been on here for a while. It's all right. I'm going to do this chapter by chapter starting tomorrow. This is good. For me, this is good. That's why I got to read it. I need this for my own soul. Trust me, man. I find myself getting just like C.S. Lewis. That's why I got to read this once a year. I find myself going the same route. Okay. The reason for that is because I get too caught up in the craziness of this temporal, where we know the eternal awaits. And if you get too caught up in this day, in this land, in this world, you're going to forget what awaits for you. What awaits for us is, the true coming of Jesus Christ, second time. And for some reason, this right here always hits me in the soul because it says, dude, what are you doing? Straighten up, fly right. Your part, this is straighten up, fly right. And I'm going to do this anyway. Frank, I don't care if people watching. I mean, they can. People come to God when God calls. It's fine. And one day, someone will watch this. Maybe if YouTube doesn't ban me 5 years from now, I say, oh, and I don't know what those. I have no idea. But it's we can't control other people. You know what I'm saying? God, Holy Spirit are in charge. They're going to do what they're going to do, and we're just along for the ride. Anyway, all right, my friends, blessings to you all. Read your book. I got, I think somebody, Frank Peritti, I got a book. I think that name sounds familiar to me, Ruby. I have a book on here that I've been meaning to read. I get 8 million Kindle books. It's called The Anti-Library. And it is, let me go to my library. Oh, no, it's actually Napoleon Hill, Outwitting the Devil. Outwitting the Devil by Napoleon Hill. That's, I had someone mentioned that to me. Outwitting the Devil. So, yeah. All right. See you guys. Thanks again. See you. Oh.